Push this button and every book on the planet is eviscerated. No, that does not mean we get rid of its history, but the physical books we have right now will disappear in my hands if we push this button. All the books on my desk, all the books on my wall, all of it, the libraries included, will be gone. So that begs the question, will you push the button? This is a hypothetical I had a conversation with my friend last night, and this was so interesting to me that I just had to make a YouTube video about it. The obvious answer, if you are a fan of my content, is no, we should definitely not push this microphone button. But then that begs the question, why? Why should we care if books should exist right now in the modern age, despite the fact that that's the very thing going on at this moment? Books are slowly fading out of the world. And it's important to realize this because with the rise of AI, social media, and even internet use through websites online, it becomes so easy to forget that this right here is a physical piece of media. But one thing's for certain that I want to discuss in today's video is the fact that books themselves have a point of relevancy and purpose that I believe will make it stand longer than most of these things combined. In particular, it's the reason why books are still modern to this day, despite the fact that it's more of an ancient relic, and why we still create books no matter what. A few decades ago, we used to have this thing called libraries. I mean, we still do, but it's a different kind of library. I had a conversation with my grandpa about going to the library one day, and he mentioned to me that libraries themselves were the biggest points of learning. It was a focal point in literature, media, even movies at the time, that going to the library signified importance. It signified learning and how we can develop our own minds based on the books we read. While that still is true to a certain extent now, we don't use books for that same medium. The reason why we actively read books isn't the same as the reasons we did decades ago. Comparatively, we use the internet to find new information. We don't have to go to the library to find an answer to a book. We can just look it up online and find an answer right away. It's so interesting to me then that when we consider books' purpose nowadays, people point out fiction as well as the new ideas from prospering authors and writers. I myself feel biased to say that, but I do want to take the note that fiction and nonfiction, both of which have a different purpose than they once did in the past. Fiction is so easy to write nowadays. It's one of the most focal points that made me want to create this video in the first place. I've been writing fiction for the past 2 to 3 years of my life, and one thing that made it clear for me why I choose it over nonfiction is the fact that it has this level of creativity, ingenuity, and timelessness that anyone can pick up and start writing. When I say fiction, I mean a fictional story that doesn't exist. It can be one made of one's own ideas, but it can be prospered off in many and hundreds of different ways. With sites such as Google Docs and Word Docs and all these other forms, we can write fiction right at the tip of our fingertips. It was a small idea we had to type away years ago on a stationary computer, but now we can do this in front of our desks, in front of our beds, and we can do it anywhere we realistically want. Same case applies with nonfiction and the fact that the creation we make out of those nonfiction excerpts really elevates how well humanity has come along in literature. One of my favorite books I've read this year, as a matter of fact, is a nonfiction book called On the Origin of Being. Now, this book is a recent piece of text that shows how the human mind evolved from prehistoric era all the way to now. And it talks about many things from diet, exercise, sleep, and the most notable of all, being work. Productivity is a huge point of discussion, as I read earlier this morning. It's all about how the human mind works so much in the modern age compared to what it did years ago that we feel often tired, often ill, and physically in pain that we don't want to do any more work. It's a sad case because I understand why we live through this. With how hard times are, especially from an economic perspective, it's important to understand that the way we live will dictate how we evolve as people. And for me at least, books are a way to test patience. In my humble opinion, books have this trend of patience that I feel nothing in the world right now comes close to. We have our phones, we have movies, televisions, even video games to a certain extent. But for me, books are the easiest way to control the mind. When our minds are so static and fringy all the time, we lose ourselves in the process. And as such, I feel that if we were to slow down and enjoy the peace and quiet of our lives, perhaps things would be easier. And this is where books come in. Books have this ability to slow us down and make us appreciate what we read. They make us mindful, more aware of the world around us, and in particular, give us a sense of hope that both fiction and nonfiction do. I adore how both of these types of mediums create art in ways that nothing comes close to. And when I considered that after reading a few chapters in this book, I come back to the hypothetical I presented at the start of this video. Will you destroy every book on this planet for the sake of whatever? Why would we destroy every book on this planet? Why would we? It's a hard question to ask, but then that begs the question of what's its relevancy now and why are books fading out? It's because it doesn't fit in with the modern times of scrolling on your phone. These businesses and corporations want you to stay on your phone, to consistently consume. And while books do the same thing of consumption, it teaches you patience in a way that I feel nothing on this planet does. How we can use said patience to evolve as people makes us more aware of what we're going to do in the future, what we're going to be in the past, and who will we be now in the present. If you ever feel down and you ever feel the need to pick up something, I would highly suggest a book. But books take willpower, books take discipline. And if we want to destroy it all for the sake that we can read more online, then I fear that's not the direction we should be heading in. We should have more readers. We should have more writers. And you yourselves are among this small, tight-knit crowd that I personally want to see in the world. Someone who wants to read more fiction, read more nonfiction, and enjoy the vastness of learning each and every day. You are forever a student, and you should be appreciative of that fact. Because the more you learn, the more you will dictate the life that you want to lead. So my best advice from all of this, my best and most important advice actively comes from the excerpt I was reading in Origin of Being. I'm going to quote the authors Luke Comer and Jenny Powers on this, but the biggest thing we should understand when looking at tasks such as reading a book is to be less distracted while doing them, quote, mindful and be streamlined of our efforts, and spend less time in the limbos of the past or the future. We should be able to slow down, appreciate the peace we live with each and every day, and be open to new ideas that every book presents us with. Sometimes books have a way of teaching us things that aren't the best. For instance, fantasy novels are not among my favorites because of how derogatory they can be, but in other cases, look for what you personally advocate for. If books are similar to the feeds on YouTube, yes, you will be fed nonsense. You will be fed AI and stuff that doesn't lead the right path. But as a writer and a self-publishing author, I want you to understand that your books and your stories will matter only if you consume the right media that follow with it. So look deep in your heart what you truly want to read. Sometimes you want to read a fantasy novel, go for it. Other times it's adventure, nonfiction, self-help, stuff like this, or even just a relentless breath of fresh air of something you never thought you would enjoy. One of my favorites this year has to be the classic novel Lord of the Flies, which helped me understand why classics are vital and important to this day. All in all, continue reading the amazing books that exist out there in the world, because if I really did push this button, and if this button was truly real, then you would have never got the chance to read all the fantastic pieces of work right now in the universe. So take your time to enjoy what you have. Read whatever book you are currently reading, and if you're not reading any at any moment, then pick up a book and start reading now. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Use this information wisely to continue inspiring others. I know that this was a tough one to digest, but promise me that we won't follow up with this hypothetical. And promise me that we will create more books in the future, create more information from the past, and use all of this and more to create a better life for each and every one of us. Check out my Instagram down the top link of the description if you want personal help in writing your own novel, as well as book recommendations that I've been going through this past year. Along with that, check out my own books that I've personally taken the time to write down there as well. Until next time, I am Arnel Arcega, and keep on reading, keep on writing, and take care.